how'd you feel the team focused throughout the week in practice?
I thought it was very good. Yesterday's walkthrough and throughout the course of practice, the energy was as good as it's probably been all season in a lot of ways. But building off of, I think the last few weeks we've had good practices within the amount that we've actually been able to do. There's so much more walkthrough that goes on around this time of the year. But when we were able to go full speed yesterday, I thought our guys really communicated at a high level and buzzed around pretty good.
What is the trust level, Liam, when you do a Wednesday walkthrough and then also one yesterday, that these guys are still gonna be focused?
Yeah, I mean, we did a good amount. We still had a 3-play Mamba yesterday where we went good on good against each other, obviously, and then had the normal D&D and then third down full speed yesterday, which I thought those guys were moving around at a good clip. And then today, obviously, we'll have the 4 periods of full speed Fast Friday. But I thought our offensive line, Wednesday and the walkthrough were as good as we've been all season in terms of picked up the pace a little bit, but also just the hat placement, the details, the getting to the second level and getting in a body position to go block the defender, little details that we're trying to focus on and harp on throughout the week. That's why they're pros. Ultimately, they have the ability to take care of their bodies, but also practice with intentionality. And I'm never too concerned if our guys are going to show up and play on Sundays.
How has Jordan Lewis looked since he returned, and what has he meant to the defense this season?
Yeah, he's an elite communicator in terms of the way he sees the game, for sure. He's got a calming presence that I think helps out a lot of guys, an accountability factor out there as well. So, I think the guys trust him and know that he's going to compete his tail off, getting better and better, healthier and healthier. And but I've been really pleased with those other guys too that have played and stepped in and had to give us a lot of meaningful snaps to help us get to the point where we're at on defense right now.
How good did it feel to see Trayvon back on the field yesterday?
Yeah, it was great to have Trayvon back out there. Watching him buzz around in Indy a little bit and talking to him this morning. He's confident, feels positive right now. So we'll see what it looks like out there today. And buzz around on Fast Friday, see what that looks like. But he's excited.
Same thing with Parker, getting them both back on the practice field, emotional lift for these guys.
Yeah, I think so. I think you look at these games down the stretch, or like I mentioned the other day, you're limited options, right? Limited opportunities, and even though we see these guys again, I definitely think there's a heightened sense of awareness. You want to go play, you want to compete in games like this ultimately. So we'll see. We got to make sure that we're doing right by those guys and what's best for our team, though.
Can you learn a lot about your team in a week like this one?
I think you have a pretty good clue of what your team is in a lot of ways, even though there's still so much room for growth. But I fully expected our team to, hey, let's go take care of business as we needed to this past week, and then approach this one like, hey, what it is a potential playoff opportunity. So it's like, hey, nobody's had to say anything, but the way that the guys have prepared throughout the week, look, win, lose, or draw, I think our guys are ready to go play this game.
How valuable is it when you're in year one as a data point to have a game of this magnitude from an evaluation standpoint of who can rise to the occasion in a clutch circumstance?
Yeah, it's a great, the best player, a lot of your best players typically rise up, in a lot of these moments, and then there's others that you figure out do as well, right? And that's a cool part of, like you just mentioned, learning about your team and learning about, playing in critical moments, and but not making it too big either, right? That's that fine line that we walk in this profession and in this game, that these guys are ultimately out there performing. So, I really want them to go out with a truly, man, let's just see what the heck happens, and let's go play our best ball and see what happens. And that's ultimately all you can ask for from your players.
The juggling of the old line both during the week and in the game. What stands out about the way Sean coaches that group and prepares for those situations?
Yeah, we've been shuffling. I mean, you guys all were losing our minds in training camp when we had shuffling going on, and it's like, oh my God, is this guy gonna start here and this and that? It's like, no, just moving around, and You know,
That's a little bit of an exaggeration.
no, it's
Whatever.
not at all. You guys, it was like the biggest story after a scrimmage. You know, no, seriously, we've tried to do that for a long time, and that's kind of been our philosophy to ultimately just try to get them as comfortable playing with different combinations, because it's such a volatile position, guys. You know, like I've been absolutely crushed by it before, to where you don't have enough and you don't have any, you know, the continuity, and you're getting guys off the street to come in and play, and it's hard. It's such a hard position to go cohesively play together, and it's so few positions in the NFL that for it to really work, it's got to work together. And so I think that Sean, Clee, and Trevor have done a nice job of making sure that we're intentional about doing that in the course, even though sometimes it can like frustrate you, right? Because you're trying to build a 5 in training camp or whatever it is, but you're also trying to build sustained continuity and guys that can go out and not maybe miss too many beats if they're in. And I think that's been a good journey and a good process for us.
You mentioned, I think, on on your radio show yesterday, you mentioned that the conditions could be wet and working with a wet ball in practice. How important is that if you're anticipating poor weather on Sunday?
Yeah, we definitely did a good amount of it yesterday. I thought Trevor in Indy specifically threw it as gut. You know, I know he's able to throw in the wet, in the weather and all that stuff. It's more just what we talked about was a heightened sense of fundamentals, technique, playing underneath yourselves, coming to balance, long stride, short stride when we're coming to make a tackle. When you're at the second level, how fundamental can you be? Because sometimes you get lost and you know, lose your footing or whatever it is. You see it last night in some of the Dallas game on the turf, but it's just one of those things that, you know, we just try to preach, not as much about this and the wet ball as more the fundamentals and the heightened sense of awareness that ball security is, the kicking game, all those kind of things.
Does your preparation change a lot going up against a game plan defensive coordinator, as you mentioned, in a week like this?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly what you're gonna get, right? It's not one of those weeks where you're always sitting there like, okay, you know you're gonna maybe get X, Y, and Z at X, Y, and Z time and X, Y, and Z situation or D&D, whatever it is. It's, you know, Lou does a nice job of mixing it up and rolling the dial a little bit, and he has the game plan. We're gonna see something at some point that we probably haven't seen a ton on tape, and that's the challenge as coaches. That's the beauty of it. When you get into it, how can you go and adjust and make sure that your players are given the best chance to be successful? So that's something that's can be frustrating but also exciting to know, because that's the chess match.
You talked about the offensive line staff preparing those guys. What about the secondary staff, especially at cornerback? You know, how they've kind of gotten so many guys ready to play.
And there's a lot of guys that have played defensive back for us this season. You know, and I think that Milo and Perk and Drew Lascari and those guys and Bill Sheridan, those guys have done a nice job, really nice job of preparing people. Like the amount of time that like Antonio and Jarian and these guys are up, Rayon, they're up there, Cam, getting extra, and that's something that we want. I want guys up here getting extra work as much as possible within the realm of what's manageable for their time and our coaches' time, but you know, I think those guys have really poured into it, really tried to get the message to the players so that it's communicated properly on the field better. They've done a nice job.
Liam, when you've had a off day of the running game this year, you've always followed it up with a big rushing game the next week. Why is that? Is that intentional in the play calling? Is that the players being pissed off it didn't work? I mean, why have you come back from poor games on the ground and had strong ones?
I think that look, you get what you emphasize sometimes, and per each defense, yes, it's not always the same in terms of how that defensive line or linebackers play, right? There's some teams that are penetrating, there's some teams that are a little bit more readers, and then there's blitz teams, and then there's not blitz teams, right? And what I think the message for our guys is just as much to, like, let's not tweak too much of what we do up front for what we're seeing defensively. Like, they got to stop our run game. They got to deal with us running double teams and getting on the perimeter and doing our thing, and just kind of taking the fight more so to the opponent as opposed to maybe waiting to see what happens.
Logan Cook, Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. What have you seen from Logan? I mean, that's a pretty big honor.
Yeah, it is. I'm very proud of Logan. He's been as steady a person since I've gotten here that I think you can have. His personality does not change at all, regardless of circumstances or, good, bad. He's very, very much even keeled. You're getting exactly who you're getting. There's not much hiding from who Logan Cook is, I think, in our locker room in terms of the confidence, the swagger, but also he's a consistent pro, and he does it at a high level. So, I'm very proud for him and his family.
Did you get a chance to watch the hunt at all? Just kind of reflecting upon Josh's year and.
I haven't gotten to see it yet, but I actually got a great text from a friend actually in Tampa talking about the hunt and some of that footage. I think our production, they do a phenomenal job with that series, and I've gotten so much positive feedback on that series itself. But for Josh specifically, to have the X amount of 8 months that he's had as a family, as a man, as a person, as a father, and as a competitor, I've been very proud of the way that he's been able to find his way here in terms of fighting through some tough stuff as a family, as a man, but also as a teammate, as a leader, a lot of new going on. And I think you've started to really see a surge from him and a confidence from him, a little bit of that weight left off in some ways, and you're just seeing a guy go out and compete his ass off every play and fight and scratch and claw, and I've been really proud of that.
Then just on field, if Parker can't go on Sunday, wide receiver room shuffle, no Diami obviously didn't play last week. Who kind of steps in? How do you sort out through those three positions?
Yeah, if he doesn't, if Parker's unable, then it'll be a mix of Diami, Tim Patrick, and also Austin Trammell for right now, I would say. So it's a matter of those guys being able to fill, and then also be able to play Z and X at some of those other positions as well, with Diami and Tim being able to do some of those things as well. So, all those guys have made big plays for us at some point this season. Love to have Parker out there, and obviously for special teams and for offense, but really trust that we'll be able to go out and get the job done regardless.
Kevin Caselli has said sort of every week that this is the most important game in franchise history. Is that the mindset that you preach to the players, and how has that sort of maybe helped you guys mentally each and every week?
Yeah, that's definitely something that Tony's mentioned a lot, and it kind of goes into the same theme of trying to go 1-0 each week, because you truly cannot take for granted any of these opportunities in the National Football League. You take one of those for granted, and you're going to see yourself on the bad end of maybe a game you feel like you should win, or you've gotten to a point in the season where you feel like you're going to win a game like that, and then, oh shoot, you just laid an egg. And we felt that before. We have felt that in terms of not taking for granted when you're in a pretty cool position, a position to take advantage of the moment. And you look at some of those big games that we have had here so far this season, and you look at obviously San Francisco, and you look at Kansas City, and you look at some of those games that we have taken advantage of the moment. And then you look at obviously Houston second half and not taking advantage of it. So now you feel that way, and you know what that feels like. That approach needs to remain for 4 quarters.
That's good. Appreciate it.
Right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Coach.
Coach.